Roll. On the pasuk, Yeshua shalach lefanav el Yosef lahorot lefanav Goshen. That Yehuda, Yaakov sent in front of him to Yosef to horot. That was not me. That was just a camera. To teach in Goshen. All right, what happened over here? In this week's Torah portion, Yosef reveals to his brothers who he is, who was concealed from them. He is not just a Egyptian ruler. He, in fact, is none other than their own brother Yosef, who, despite his being sold by them into slavery years ago, he still loves them. And he tells them, go back and bring your father, tell him I'm still alive, and bring your father and let him come down. So sure enough, brothers go and they tell their father that Yosef is still alive and is the king of Egypt and he wants you to come down. So Yehuda first doesn't believe them, and then finally he does believe them. And he says, okay, we'll go down there. But first of all, Yehuda, you go first and you establish over there places of learning. Okay, what do they have over there? In those days, that the Torah existed. It hadn't been given yet on Mount Sinai, but the Torah, of course, is God's will. It's eternal. And Abraham understood what it was, and it said that he learned in the Yaakov. Yitzchak learned Torah. It says Yaakov learned Torah. And Yaakov says that in those days there was the 7 Noahide commandments, but it says that Abraham, he understood all the commandments before they were given. So what exactly they had in addition to the 7 commandments, I don't know, but the 7 commandments is certainly sufficient because that teaches all human, activity and philosophy and psychology and psychiatry and sociology. All these things are all included in the 7 Noahide commandments. Whatever it was, that's the Torah. So it said that Yaakov sent Yehuda down to Egypt, to a place of Goshen. Paro gave them the land of Goshen. And he sent them down to establish places of learning Torah. L'taken lo beit Talmud, to establish places of learning Torah. Shemisham, that from there, Teitzei Hora, that's what it means, L'horot. The Horot, from then it will come down, how do you say, laws and decisions in day-to-day activities. In other words, to know what God wants, so that everybody will know what God wants, everybody will do what God wants. That Yaakov, of Farois, Geschicht, that Yaakov had previously sent Yehuda to Egypt in order, this is a translation of this, in order to establish places of learning, yeshivos and learning Torah. Zenmir, therefore, so we see from this, as Beshas a Yid, that in a time when a Jew, Darf Kuman in a Naya Medina, comes in a new place, Darf zum alles Ersten, first of all, he has to barvorn and make sure, noch for Zion Kuman, and then before he even arrives there, as in their Medina, that in that place, Zol Zion Amokum Torah, there should be a place of learning Torah. Vile, because Torah is the Gans and Kiyum from the land, from the Lebanon, because Torah is the whole existence of the life of a Jew. People of the book. Darf men aber verstehen, we have to understand, was had Yaakov gedarft schicken besondere shliach? Why did he have to send a special person, Yehuda, to Egypt, to machen dort, to make over there a place of Torah? Make over there a place of Torah. Dort is doch shoin frier gewen Yosef. Yosef was already there, and with his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Hat doch gekent metaken sein dem Beit Talmud Torah durch Yosef. He could have just sent a message to Yosef, or he could go down himself. Yosef was the king, owned the whole country, had all the money in the world. In 2 days, he could make up a place to learn. What's the problem? How many Jews were there that were to come down to learn. It says there was only 70 to learn the Torah. And if you want to say that each one came down with his wife, okay, so 140. But they could have gone down immediately, first thing, as soon as they got there, and said, and Yaakov was happy. He was happy to see his son. He hadn't seen his son 12, 13 years, hadn't seen him. He kissed him. Yaakov would say, my dear son, I want you to establish places where we can learn Torah. First of all, set up tents. We'll learn the Torah. And there wasn't lacking any land. And then build buildings. Build a building, we'll learn Torah. There's only 30 of us, whatever. No, 70 of us, I'm sorry. 70 people went down. So make a tent. How long does it take to set up a tent, right? Yeah, Yosef had unlimited manpower. He could set up a tent in a half of an hour, less, right? It wasn't lacking material. Wasn't lacking. That's it. Yosef could have done it. Or even more, according to what the rest. So why did Yaakov have to send Yehuda? Also, according to Rizal, from the days since Abraham existed, Lo Parsha Yeshiva, there was not any time when there was lacking learning Torah. Avram, it said, learned in the yeshiva. Yitzchak learned in the yeshiva. Yaakov learned in the yeshiva. We say this also in a prayer we say in Simchat Torah. Is doch by Yosef, so it's by Yosef. Mistam oicha zoya geven. It was also the same thing. Ubafrat, and of course, especially Loit, according to the Pirush Rizal, what the rabbis say on the pasuk, ki ben zukunim hu lo. It said that Yaakov loved Yosef. It was ben zukunim hu lo. That what? As Yaakov had iber gegeben. Yosef, he gave to Yosef everything that he learned. On oifen, and regarding, here we go. Yeah. Whatever. No. Oh, that's good. No. There we go. And regarding the sentence, Vayera, Vayar, as Agalot, it says that Yosef, when he sent the brothers back to bring the father, so it said Yaakov didn't believe them, that Yosef was still alive. And it says he saw the Agalot. He saw the Agalot, he saw the wagons that they were there, and that reminded him of a law that they learned, which is called the law of Egla Arufa. Egla Arufa is an interesting law, and it's a law like this, that if a person is found dead between two cities, and it seems that, in any case, if between two cities, and so they discover which city is nearer to the dead person, and that city has to bring a egla arufa. An egla is a calf, and you break the neck of the calf, you take it down to a certain place, and between the two cities, and you break the calf's neck and say, we did not spill this blood. What does it mean we didn't spill the blood? That we did not send him away without any accompaniment. And this was the law that Yaakov was speaking to his son Yosef about when he sent him away. Yaakov sent Yosef to go and find his brothers, right? And because he sent them away, so that was the reason that his brothers eventually saw him and threw him into a pit, and he got sold down to Egypt. But it says, interestingly enough, that anyone who did accompany a person, send them away and accompany them to the border, that nothing bad would happen to that person. And the reason this man is dead is because it must be that the city that he was nearest to did not accompany him. But if they would have accompanied him, nothing would happen. So he sent these agalot. The word for agala is a wagon. It's the same exact word, letters and word as calf, agala. Huh? And so when he saw that Yosef sent him agalot to bring him back, in other words, that he really wanted to see him again, he remembered this law that a person who is accompanied will not befall any bad. So it must be because he accompanied Yosef, so it can't be that anything bad occurred to Yosef. So it could be that Yosef is alive, and the wagons, which is the same word, indicate that he really wants to see his father quickly, as quick as possible. So this enlivened them. Okay, so what does it mean? It shows that they were learning the laws. This, by the way, is not one of the 7 Noahide commandments. So they were learning this law. So it must be they were learning other laws in the Torah. As Yosef, having given Simon, that Yosef sent a sign to Yaakov on the laws of Egla Arufa, which Yaakov was learning with him. When Yosef Hanhaga is Yosef's Hanaga, and Yosef's conduct is doch given in a zoy hoicher madrega was such a high level as Yaakov Doroif Gezok that he said, Rav O Yosef ben Ichai. He said, oh, this is a sign that my son Yosef is still alive. And he sent them a sign of what they were learning in the Torah, and the topic they were learning about in the Torah was a person who was accompanied from a city will not die. And Yaakov knew that he accompanied his son, so he must be still alive. From this high understanding of Yaakov is Yosef given chai. So Yaakov understood that Yosef was alive, and he sent them a sign according to the Torah. Biz as das hat gewirkt as v'tachir ruach Yaakov, to the degree that it enlivened the spirit of Yaakov. Sharta alav Shechina, that the Shechina rested on Yaakov, as the Shechina had Veder Gerut, or if Yaakov, that the Shechina rested again over Jacob. The Shechina means a feeling of life and happiness and purity, and removing depression. A person feels that the Shekhinah feels happy about life, because Shekhinah is life. Here we go. As you do, it's known. Okay, so now we have the question. The question is, why did Yosef send Yehuda down to Egypt to establish places of learning? I'm sorry, why did Yaakov send Yehuda down to Egypt to establish places of learning, so there would be places of learning before Yaakov got down there? Why did he have to send Yehuda to there? Yosef was already there, and Yosef already knew Torah. If he had not yet established places of learning, for sure he would do it in an instant. Why send Yehuda? That's the question. As you do, it's known, the difference between Madrigas from Yosef and Madrigas from Yaakov. It's known the difference between Yosef and Yaakov, und the Shvatim and the tribes. Yaakov Avinu, the Avos, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, also Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob, and the Shvatim, and also all of the other 11 tribes, Zainen given abgesundert. They had to be separate from the world. Was therefore haben sie ausgeklieben zu sein Reutzon. Therefore, they all chose to be shepherds. Wir haben sich vernommen mit Peter and Chef to take care of and to feed sheep. Bichdei, in order, was weniger haben zu tun mit den Inyanim vom Olam hazeh. Not to have anything to do with the world. Now, what's a shepherd do? Generally speaking, one is a successful shepherd. When the sheep are eating, where do sheep eat? Right? You have to take them to a restaurant or something to feed them. No, you take a sheep into an open field where there's a lot of grass and there's no wolves or anything to disturb them, and it's quiet. And he sits up there and he watches the sheep. Maybe he has a couple of sheepdogs, and he has maybe a slingshot or something and a stick and a flute, something like that. And he sits there and he plays, and that's it. He plays and he watches the sheep. That's his job. His job is that nothing bad happens to the sheep. And once in a while, he has to take them away from a place that they've eaten all the food. So he takes them to another place where there's more food. That's all. It's not a difficult job, and it is not a disturbing job. It's a very calm job. There's no surprises. Once in a while, he sees a bear or a wolf, something like that. Okay. Then he's got a little bit of action to do, but generally speaking, they don't, doesn't have that. A shepherd is a person that's separated from the world. As they sollen they nit steren Torah, so that nothing would interfere with their Torah and their contemplation and their service and prayer to the Creator of the universe. Mashiach Yosef, which is not the case. Yosef is nit gaven. Yosef was not a shepherd in his whole life, showing from young year on, from his young years on, he was never a shepherd. Oich ben is verkoift gaven, even when he was sold for a slave in Egypt, is gaven farnuman with Firen the Geschäft. He was always working at being the manager of Paro's what was it? This his industry, is his property, is his this from Potiphar, the household of Potiphar. Via state, like it says, Vayavo Abaisa Lasot Malachto. He went to do his work. He was working hard in the house all the time. Why is it moving? Why not? Why not? Here we go. Yosef is gekumen. Yosef came and hoist to his house to do work. Zogt oif them the Targum Onkelos lembadek bekizve cheshbona, in order to check the accounts of the house. Potiphar was also a businessman. He made money, and Yosef was in charge of the whole thing. Had gefind sich the cheshbonos gefiert. That Yosef, he conducted all of the accounting in the house. Was becholowish in general is das doch a groise tirda. This is a lot of problems, a lot of troubles. He had a lot of investments and a lot of things going on, and Yosef had to have his finger on everything. Bazundrus später and Bazundrus später later on, when he was, and separately when he was when he became the head of the king, when he became the number 2, the viceroy of all of Egypt, und hat eingeführt the ganze Melucha, and Paro said, I'm going to go on automatic drive over here. You take over, Yosef. You do everything. And once in a while, I'll check up on you to see if you did right, but everything is going to be under you. When he was the king of Egypt, he was the leader of all of Egypt, he was so busy that as Picha Yishak Kolami, that according al Picha, that your word will be what rules all the people. I'm not going to make any more laws or decrees. You do the whole thing, Yosef. I see you care about the Egypt as much as I do, and you're a better leader. You know what to do. He gave the advice about how to explain the dream, how to save the world. It says, without you, Paro said, no one's going to even lift up their hand or their foot. No one's going to go up on their horse without you. As Erhat Achtung, that Yosef had given attention, they say conducted, controlled. Or if Yeder in ganzen land, and every detail and every person in the whole entire land, is there doch given no stark verbunden. If so, he must have been very, very occupied in ruling Egypt. I mean, obviously, he must have had, the helpers, but nevertheless, he was the leader. Und von deswegen, nevertheless, hat es im Ganzen nicht gestört. It did not disturb him at all. And Beshas Maisa, when he was busy with the world and clinging to God, he was always clinging to God all the time. The Rebbe brought that in the Sikha that we learned in the morning. This means, as by Yosef, that Yosef had geleuchten begila, was revealed in a revealed way, the Madrega from God, like from godliness, was is hecher from fun zu sein a mocker of olamos. Yosef was somehow or other connected to an aspect of God which was not just higher than the world, it was higher than even being the source of the world. It was a level of godliness that wasn't connected at all to the creation. Why? Because we see that Yosef, that he was in the world and doing things with the world, it didn't disturb him, didn't disturb his Jewishness at all. He was attached to God. That's why it says that the brothers couldn't recognize him. We'll see. Was dort hut, which that place where Yosef's soul was privy to and was aware of, hat Welt in ganzen kein betroff nit with the world. He doesn't meet the world treff at all. It doesn't meet with the world at all. He's connected only with the Creator. So therefore is nit shayach zu sagen, it's not relevant as the inyanim from Tirdas from Welt that the bothers of the world sollen im vernehmen would take a would occupy him or confuse him to his clinging to God. No, he was always clinging to God. Okay, now we have to explain something over here. This obviously shows that God is not, totally spiritual, because Yosef can't be, walking around with this glazed look in his eyes and just, sort of saying, chanting or something all day long, and be bothered in this country with all the financial problems and the educational problems and the social problems. Yosef was occupied in the whole world because he was attached to the essence level of God, where the world doesn't bother him. It doesn't bother him. And even though the world, it has to be concerned. It's a concern of his. He's concerned with the world and he's in the world. But the problems of the world are just to him like challenges. Doesn't disturb him at all, which is not the case to brothers. His brothers, they would put him in a situation like that. They would just hold their heads and say, leave me alone. I can't take it. It's against their grain. So Yosef was a totally higher level of connection to God than all the brothers were. And obviously he was learning Torah. Hagam, or by the Avos, even by Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and all the other 11 tribes, the other 11 sons of Yaakov, Hat Meir Geven was signing also godliness revealed, is thus upper, but this was a level of godliness, was tut sich an in Welt, which is connected to the world. The Mele is verstandig, so now it's understood as Welt, that the world, vernemt dort, a place that is connected to the world. They're connected to the world. Disturbances would disturb them. Therefore, Zion Zig of men, right? So therefore they had to be shepherds. Upgetragen, removed from the Weltirdas, from world problems, in order, the Inyani Olam, that the matters of the world, soll nit sein kein Stern, it should not disturb their service of God at all. But by Yosef, had Meir, that was shining such a high level of godliness that was his hecher, which is higher than was higher than this simply saves him money on buying glasses. I don't know. Okay, was is hecher, which is higher from the world, on poiled in ear and it caused them, because Yosef was connected as an ofen from Soviv. This is what we call Soviv, calling him an aspect of God which encompasses all creation. So automatically, hat gekent sein farnumen in Tirdos from Welt with the world, und gleichzeitig and simultaneously soll ze im nit mebalbel, it wouldn't confuse him at all. Sein zu sein tachlis a devekus belokus. So in other words, this is a level of godliness that Yosef, awareness of the Creator, which encompasses the spiritual and the physical. The brothers, they were spiritual, and spiritual is disturbed by the physical. But Yosef, he was a level which is higher than the spiritual and the physical, because after all, the spiritual and the physical are both just creations. And Yosef was higher even than the aspect of God which creates the spiritual and the physical. He was an encompassing aspect of God. Okay, so again, that he's encompassing, what does this prove? That this encompassing level of godliness is not just a high spiritual level that he was removed, exactly opposite. It was such a level of reality of God that the physical and the spiritual could exist simultaneously. It didn't disturb him. At one moment, he could be telling them to, fight a battle or something like that, and immediately he could just turn to learn Torah and remember everything he learned and be calm. Okay, a little bit more. That this tremendously high level of Yosef is that's what he was. This high level of Yosef that he had was even when he was doing all this accounting in the Tiras Olam and was involved in the world. It's not that when he was involved in things of the world, he was totally in that, and then he went back. That was gone. Then he was not connected to the world. He was connected to God. No, even when he was, because the same God that gave the Torah is the God that creates the world, and everything happens in the world happens because God wants it to. So even when Yosef was aware of this, right? He was aware of this. Is ergaven betachlis avekos. Even when he was dealing in the world, he was totally united with God. Is esbenogea? This is relevant to the of Yosef's soul. This is the level of the soul of Yosef. Obernogea tzulim with the Torah, but regarding to learning Torah, which the Torah was their mensch, was learn Torah, which a person has to learn Torah, he has to be, according to his uniting with the Torah. Everyone has to learn Torah and realize that it's God's Torah. This a person has to realize according to his own personality. Was there mensch, a person, this is Muzrain Torah so emunaso. It has to be that the Torah is the only thing that he has. As sein ganzen Vernehmlichkeit, that everything he is doing, soll sein nor in Torah, only in Torah. When the Rebbe, so therefore, when is beschäftigt oiser Torah, when he's using something, when he's doing something other than the Torah, euch mit andere Sachen, involved in other things, even though they are according to the Torah. When is oich done a merkava, and he is a what we call a vessel, a vehicle for godliness. But nevertheless, when he's learning Torah, he's more connected to God than when he's dealing in the world. That's a normal person, not like Yosef. Yosef was constantly connected to God, no matter what he did. When he was working in the world, he was the same level as when he was learning the Torah. He was connected to God. But a normal person, when he learns Torah, so when he's learning the Torah, he's connected to God, if he's learning Torah in the proper way. But when he's not learning Torah, then felt over in him, it's lacking this unity with the Torah. The full ständige Vereinigung, the total unification, unity, can sein nor done, it can only be when his Torah is only when he's totally involved in Torah. A normal person. On Erhat Nitzutan, he has nothing to do with anything else. Afilu in Yanim Shal Torah. Azoi, for instance, like Abaya, he said, as Ven Erhat Gedarft Tan Afilu a Leichte Arbet. Abaya, there was Abaya and Rabbah, right? They were Tanaim, that was after, 200 years, something like that, after the temple was destroyed. They were Abaya and Rabbah, was called Tanaim. They were a sort of a lower level than they were Amoraim. They were a bit lower level than the Tanaim that was beforehand. It was called the Amoraim. Nevertheless, Abaya, these were tremendous Torah geniuses and they could do amazing miracles. But nevertheless, it says that when Abaya had to do any sort of work, Lechta Arbet, for Zion, aim for his mother, the Froi, or for his wife, was as Im Gehadavet, for his mother, for his wife, whoever he worked for, said when he had to do even the most simple things, Zol Esim Mebalbel, it would confuse him for learning Torah. We also find by the laws of Talmud Torah by the Alter Rebbe, teilt dort for andere zwischen for learning Torah. There he categorizes the different types of learning Torah for their chasana. He says a person before he gets married, as he has to learn Torah, on oich dem learning, and there is the svei dreyor, these 2 or 3 years after he gets married. Also, he can learn Torah before the children, he has a lot of children in the home. The first 2 years, 2, 3 children in the home, so his wife can take care of it. Then can learn, and then he can learn Torah and Sufil Torahs without too many disturbances. When zwischen them learning später, and among the categories, one is learning when he learns later on, wenn shoin oif sich dem yor from for Parnassi, he has already the yoke of making a living for his family as Rechayim al Tzavoro. It says that the millstones are hanging on his shoulder. He has a responsibility to his family. He can't just go and learn Torah all day. Chach lechiora can doch gemelt sein as oich später, that even later on, when there is darf mefarnas, when he has to teach the children, when he has to provide for his family, zoller nit sein kein größer Trud, even though it could be that he's not very bothered. Vila Moshe, for instance, a rich person, then he doesn't have to work so hard to make a living. But nevertheless, from deswegen, wie bald hat fart euch sich a yoch, because he has a yoke and he has this obligation of providing for his family, therefore is durchen yoch, but because of this obligation, just the fact that he has the obligation, even though it doesn't take too much time on him, but it detracts his mind. Nit sein limud, the mile, hasn't got the quality of learning Torah before he gets married. This is the reason was the Levim, with the Levites, Vemen's ganzen avoda, that their whole services in the holy temple, Malamed, and they were teachers of children. Haben nit gehat, Shimon and Levi says they taught children. Had nit gehat, kind of chilik, they didn't have any, but especially Levi, they didn't have any land in place of Israel. They weren't farmers. They didn't have to work on the land or anything. Why? Because oib zei velten gehat satan mit zeitek zayd, because if they had to do with anything other than learning Torah and dealing with the holy temple, from a nachla, taking care of their portion of the land, protecting it, what is it, the agriculture and the plowing of this, oif velcha oifen se is nitzain, no matter what it is, voltes gestert, it would prevent, it would conflict with the total connection to God and learning Torah and prayer. Azoyer eats even now. Noch dem vi their Beis Hamikdash, even now, after the holy temple is destroyed, is un ve'en lo lahakdi lakodesh baruch hu ve'olamo elo dalet almo shel halacha. Says that God now, where is God's place that He can reveal Himself? Only in learning Torah alone. As the Eibishter gefiert sich in the fear allein Elin from Limud Torah. Now God, it says, is only found in the 4 yards, whatever it is, around the person of learning Torah. In other words, the area around the person when a person learns Torah, that, so to speak, is the holy temple where God is found. As the Eibishter gefindt sich in the Torah, learning Torah is the was velen ton, the avoda from the Beis Hamikdash, the people who want to do the service of the holy temple, namely sitting and learning Torah all the time. Nowadays, sitting and learning Torah constantly is in place of learning Torah. Darfen bei ze euch nit sein keine zete genyanim. They cannot occupy themselves at any other side things except for learning Torah. Torah tam darf sein umatatam. Their Torah has to be the only thing they do. Like the Rambam says, Levi Huvda was separated to serve God. Therefore, he was separated from the matters of the world. And not only says the Rambam, or Shevet Levi alone, but also any Jew that wants to take on himself to cling to God as Nidvaricho, as he also the same thing. Okay, so what do we see? There's a big difference between between Yosef and everyone else. Yosef was such an unusual person. Even when he was involved in the world did not disturb his connection to God and his learning Torah. It didn't disturb him. But everyone else in the world, it does disturb. If so, now we can understand why, a little bit the answer to our question. We'll have to answer this tomorrow. Why is it that Yaakov sent Yehuda down to Egypt before him, and Yehuda would establish places of learning? Why didn't he just suffice with the fact that Yosef was there? And Yosef, so because Yosef was a totally different person, he could not understand the way of learning Torah of everyone else in the world. That learning Torah had to compete with the confusion of the world. He couldn't establish places of learning Torah that would be competition with the world. By Yosef, his learning Torah, nothing competed with Torah by him. Nothing competed by it. He was totally removed from the world. So we'll see why that was the reason that Yaakov could not rely on him to make the learning of Torah, as we'll find out, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, and maybe now we can do the Yom Yom. We'll see. Let's see if I'll do it right. 1 second. I pressed the wrong button in this morning's class. Let's see. Maybe I can do it now. Oh, no. Here we go. Let's do 1 second. Stop the share. Do the thing. Yom Chabad. Yes. Press those buttons, the right buttons. It's good. Here we go. Oh. Yes. All right. Hayom Yom. The Rebbe's of Chabad. Okay. It's in the Shulchan Aruch. You're supposed to learn the written Torah, the portion of the week. In Chabad, they established that every day we learn that portion. It's the Torah, weekly Torah portion is divided up into 7. So we learn one of those portions every day with Rashi. But the Rebbe's of Chabad, in addition to this, they would go over 1 or 2 of the sections, 7 sections, on Thursday night. Then on Friday afternoon, a few hours before Shabbat, they would begin from the beginning and complete the whole Sedra with the Haftorah. They would relearn it. Then on Shabbat, before praying, they would review from Shavuot, the Shabbat day, until the end again. This they would do with Rashi. When there were 2 Haftorot, right, like there was, for instance, last week, it was Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, 2, 3. So they said one of them on Friday in the afternoon, and the other one they would say, like for instance, Rosh Chodesh, they would say that on Shabbat. Now there's repeating all this over again before the actual reading. One subject. Next topic, dreams. Sometimes dreams, most of the time dreams are just confusing. They just confuse you, and they show you things that are not really true. And they can show you things that appear to be true and give you all sorts of messages, and they're not true. But, and we see that because this week's Torah portion is talking about dreams, right? First of all, Yosef had these dreams, and then afterwards he was thrown into prison, and the minister of wine and bread, they had these dreams, and then afterwards Paro had these dreams. So dreams. So there are good dreams. There happen to be that there are such things as good dreams in which Torah subjects are made known to the person who's dreaming. If you work hard at learning Torah and you have questions that you don't understand, if you go to sleep on these questions, and if a person really devotes himself to learning Torah in the daytime, then if with great diligence and also prays with great diligence, in other words, connects himself to the creator of the universe and arouses love and awe of the creator, then in the nighttime, when his soul goes up to draw forth life from itself, from supernal life, what happens when a person goes to sleep? The soul goes up and gets recharged. that recharging is a higher level of life consciousness, as like the Zohar explains. So sometimes it can be that if that person has a true the desire to understand things in the Torah, and he's really invested a lot of energy and time in the daytime trying to understand that ideas, answers in the Torah or the hidden Torah can be revealed to him. Huh? This never happened to me. I don't know anybody who it did happen to, but the Rebbe said it does happen to. Each person according to his diligence and his servants of Torah in the daytime. There is such a thing. Good. Have a good day with Moshiach now. Thank you very much. I'll see you, God willing, tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning with the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. Shalom Uvracha. Hopefully. Shalom.